Well, just 24 hours after Manchester City won their law case against the Premier League over unfair sponsorship rules, things have already started to crash back down to earth, as it's reported that all 20 Premier League teams have been invited for an emergency meeting next week to discuss the extent to which it will need to change the current sponsorship rules and bring forward a judgment on how the rules are going to work going forward. Yes guys, how's it going? Welcome back to a new video on what I must say is a very wet and dreary day in Newcastle after what yesterday felt like quite a lot of elation. As I say, Manchester City did go ahead and win part. As I say, this is totally separate to the 115 point ruling. This is very, very separate. It's to do with the APT. If you didn't see my video yesterday, Manchester City did win some substantial points against the Premier League. They were found that ATP rules to be unlawful. ATP rules to violate competition law. As I've said this a million times, if I want to go out and sell something, I'll sell it for what I like, not because what somebody told me to. They declared that the Premier League had abused their power as part of the rulings, and that the rules were unfair and unfairly applied. So some big points there coming out yesterday from the Manchester City versus Premier League sponsorships, competitions, and how did it all affect Newcastle? Well, it was potentially a big moment, a big potential chains are off, and Newcastle can go ahead and start to do what they want. But, and I said this yesterday, there's always going to be a loophole. Things aren't ever going to be as easy, and the Premier League weren't going to really ever lie down and let Manchester City run away with it. The Premier League need to be seen as the despite the fact that, as I've said this already, they are, the mediator of it all, somehow seems very unmediated. And in some of the transcripts that have come out from this, basically, there was a part of which where the Premier League had received an email. It's all kind of blanked out. You can't see who it was. Allegedly, or it's thought to have been Daniel Levy from Tottenham. That's what people are saying. Basically sent an email to the Premier League pretty much moments after Newcastle got taken over by the PIF, saying that on behalf of him and 10 other Premier League teams, we would like a vote within the next 5 days to vote against, or at least put some framework in place to create all of this, or everything that we're talking about right now, and the fact that Manchester City are trying to defeat it, and then for Newcastle on our side of things would be helpful because we could be able to go out and actually do some of the deals that we want to do without being hampered. All of this came about literally the week after Newcastle got taken over. And again, I think that's, in my opinion, that's part of why some of these rulings came forward, that saying that it was unfair. It was actually, I think in part of it was Manchester City said that it was unfairly pushed upon kind of those countries as well. So yeah, there's a lot going on there. There was a lot of positives to take, but as I said yesterday, and I think we all possibly knew it deep down, were they really going to turn around and go, yeah, okay, charge, £10 million, £10 million, what was it? I seen someone put on, it was like £10 million a seat in St James's Park. Get a sponsor on every different seat for £10 million for a different sponsorship. I think for us, the positives is that you can't have this and then not improve, or at least not make it fair. What's the definition of fair? What's going to happen next? Well, there needs to be change. There needs to be change, and although change needs to be brought forward, the overall ruling, despite the fact that they found it to be unlawful, despite the fact that they found it defeated competition law, it was still pretty much left at the fact that the rules are there for a reason, and that they need to amend the rules. So it isn't that they're going to go, right, cancel them rules, do whatever the hell you want. The ruling was more along the line, or at least my interpretation of it, I should say, because my God, there's a lot of bloody paper to read. The interpretation was more along the lines of, it needs to be changed, something needs to be done, it needs to be better. Man City have been found, what I've already read out, I won't read out again. But it's not to say that we're going to scrap the whole thing, it's that just things need to change about it. So, What happens next? Well, like anything that ever changes in the Premier League, there needs to be a vote first. So it is being reported by the, I think the Times and a few other people, that the Premier League teams the Premier League are acting quick. They are looking to bring it, and I suppose it's the international break, so if they're going to sort it out, it needs to be soon. And I suppose for us, I'd like to know what the hell's going on sooner rather than later to bring in a vote as of next week as to how they're going to change. It'll be interesting because most of the Premier League teams will just vote that they don't want it to change. But they have to. They have to bring some form of change to this ruling, to this what appears to be quite anti-competitive, against the anti-competitive laws. So I mean, it's a little bit of a wait and see moment to see what the vote is next week. What was very interesting, however, that has come out, and if I'm honest, why weren't we doing it? Why weren't Newcastle United doing this? It was basically found that one of the points that Man City pushed was that shareholder loans were not included in... So you can't go out and get a sponsor from whoever you want. You can't go out and get a sponsor from a pal or look to bring a higher fee. And then look, I'm saying it as if it's like the Saudi own. Everything had to be run through. Everything. Even if you went and got a new sponsor with Adidas like we did, that would have had to have been okayed by the Premier League. So again, that's why it's, in my opinion, that's why the boundary was just getting pushed and pushed and pushed too far. You can't bloody walk out your house without checking in with the Premier League's all right. You can't get too much change back or you'll be checked. So you can't do any of this. But if you, like Everton or Brighton or Arsenal or a load of others, want to give your club a £300 million tax-free loan, interest-free loan, oh yeah, that's totally fine. Yeah, you can do that. Everton have got a £450 million interest-free loan from their owner. Brighton have £370 million. Arsenal have £260 million. As I say, why weren't we doing this? Why weren't Newcastle doing interest-free loans to ourselves? You can only assume that Newcastle possibly were on the ball. As Man City, you talk about Man City wanting to try and get better sponsorships for themselves and trying to bring in more revenue for themselves. But what they didn't do is they didn't go down this route. They didn't go down this route of just lumping a load of money on. I was sure that under the rules of FFP, you as an owner were only allowed to lose, is it up to 120, around 100 million across 3 years. So Newcastle are injecting money, the owners are injecting money, but I think because technically it isn't just putting their money into lose, it's putting it in as a loan that in theory they will get back across the years. That's why it wasn't included, which is absolutely mad. So, if that's the case, we have 2 or 3 or 4 certainly big interest-free loans from owners to their clubs. There is, I mean, the list goes all the way down. As I said, Newcastle down there with 0, Manchester City down there as 0. There's a few in between as well. There's a few of put a certain amount in, but not the full whack. Interestingly enough, as I say, I think Chelsea are on there as well. Everton were one of the teams who stuck up for Man City amongst a lot of this. I bet they're wondering, you know, if they kick themselves in the backside now because they've found themselves in a place with this 450 million loan when they've already had points deductions. They've got a stadium going on. What is going to be the ruling on this? Well, this is one part that I think will be positive for us because either A, they find that shareholder loans should be included as part of the FFP. And if that's the case, teams like Everton, well, I'm not really bothered about them, to be honest, Arsenal, Chelsea, they will have to slow down or find a way to send that back. Or, and this would be better, they find that shareholder loans can be done, and that shareholder loans can be done to 50, 60, 70, 100 million a year, and then Newcastle go, right, okay, well, why don't we jump in here? And that could really benefit us as well. So I think either way with the shareholder stuff, either it's against the other teams who've got it, or they allow it, and then we can run away and pump some money in. The question you could ask, why didn't Newcastle do it? Did Newcastle not do it because they are walking the tightrope and making sure? I hope so. Or Newcastle doing it because as much as the PIF wants to put money in and they're happy to create deals and build a brand, maybe they're less interested in just pumping, you know, here's a billion interest-free loan. Like, why wouldn't it do that? So I'm slightly conscious that we haven't. I would like to run the rope or run the line that it's because we were being careful and we didn't want to overstep, and why would we put ourselves down that way if we don't need to? But there's a question mark as to why we haven't done it. I suppose the interesting thing will be, what do they do? They either turn around these clubs and go, right, pay it off in the next year, or are you going to be punished? Or they say, right, well, every team can now have a £100 million interest-free loan a year that can stack up to however much or whatever. So there's room for manoeuvre all across the board here. As I say, there was no denying that Man City won some big points that need to be changed and look like they will be changed in the next week. The Premier League, however, are not admitting full defeat and are going to fight to try and keep some form of competition low. And the shareholder stuff is so totally separate. So, yes, I ran you through a fair bit there. Thoughts and comments down below. You know what it is? I've seen some points out there saying, you know, the point of it is to keep things competitive. You know, to some degree, I do agree, because football's football and football shouldn't be money. But Newcastle have been done here. They brought a rule in to stop us, you know. So as much as unbiased as I'd like to try and be, to some point you have to say, well, had they not made this rule, this would not be the case, and this would not be what we've been run through for the last 3 years. So it's just mad. Thoughts and comments down below. Thank you guys for watching, as always. As I say, on this rather dreary Tuesday lunchtime, we will have to wait and see what happens next. As I say, it's developing literally every day, so I wouldn't be surprised if more's to come out in the next few days. But I think the big one is, as I say, the Premier League won't be removing the competition rules altogether. I think that will be here to stay, unfortunately. But they will need to make amendments following what's happened. How big those amendments are and how much they can benefit Newcastle is what we'll have to wait and hear. But however, when it comes to the Premier League and it comes to voting across 20 teams, I've got a feeling that it might be us, Man City, Chelsea, and whoever else, the Blues, who are fighting on one hand and everybody else is on the other. So that's something we're going to have to wait and see as well. Talked for longer than I planned, but lots to get through. Thanks for watching, as always, guys. Drop a like if you want to see some of these rules lifted and for Newcastle to really get going, because I'm hoping it's going to happen soon. Someone's honking in the car. It's not in me, but I will go. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you later.